The ship was dying. Hana could feel it in the way the controls shook under her hands, in the terrible grinding sound coming from the damaged engines. Red warning lights flashed across every surface of the small cockpit. She tried to pull up, tried to gain altitude, but the craft refused to respond. The human missiles had torn through her ship's belly like it was made of paper. No, 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 she whispered, fighting with the controls. The ground was rushing up to meet her. Desert sand and rock filled her vision. She had maybe 30 seconds before impact. Hana was a scout for the Velteron military, trained for reconnaissance missions deep in enemy territory. She had flown dozens of dangerous operations over the past 2 years. But this time the humans had been waiting. They knew she was coming. Someone had betrayed her position, and now she was going to die on this miserable planet far from home. The ship hit the ground hard. Hana's safety harness dug into her chest as the craft tumbled across the desert, throwing up clouds of dust and sand. Metal screamed and tore. Glass shattered. Then finally everything stopped. For a moment Hana just sat there, stunned and gasping for breath. Her head throbbed where it had struck something during the crash. When she touched her forehead, her fingers came away wet with purple blood. But she was alive. Somehow, impossibly, she was alive. Move. She had to move. The humans would be coming. Hana fumbled with her harness release, finally getting it open on the third try. She grabbed her emergency pack and kicked open what remained of the cockpit door. Hot desert air hit her face as she stumbled out onto the sand. Her ship was destroyed. Nothing but twisted metal and broken components. Black smoke rose from the engine section. She started running, though her legs felt weak and shaky. Behind her, she could already hear the sound of human aircraft approaching. They would find her. There was nowhere to hide in this flat, empty desert. No cover, no shelter, just sand and rock stretching to the horizon. Her training came back to her through the fog of pain and fear. Hana pulled out her communicator and tried to call for extraction, but the device was dead, crushed in the crash. She threw it away and kept moving, though she knew it was hopeless. Everything they had told her about humans flooded through her mind. The Coalition broadcast the training videos, the stories from other soldiers. Humans were monsters. They tortured prisoners. They killed without mercy. They were savage creatures who enjoyed causing pain. If the humans caught her, death would be a mercy compared to what they would do to her first. Hana reached into her pocket and felt for the small device there. Every scout carried one. It was called a mercy button. One press and it would be over. Quick and painless. Better than what the humans would do. She heard vehicles behind her. They were close now. She could hear human voices shouting to each other in their harsh, strange language. Her legs gave out and she fell, sprawling in the hot sand. When she tried to stand, her body refused. The crash had hurt her more than she realized. Something was broken inside. Hana rolled onto her back and pulled out the mercy button. Her thumb rested on the activator. She could hear the humans getting closer, their boots crunching on the sand. This was it. She closed her eyes and prepared to press the button. Don't. The word was in her language, spoken through a translator device. Hana's eyes snapped open. A human stood over her, weapon pointed at her chest. He was tall, wearing desert combat gear in tan and brown colors. His face was covered in dust and sweat, but his eyes, those strange human eyes, were not filled with hatred or cruelty. They looked almost concerned. The device in your hand, the human said, his translator converting his words into Veltaran. Put it down, slowly. Hana's thumb twitched on the button. One press. That was all it would take. Better than torture, better than whatever horrors the humans had planned. Please, the human said, and he actually lowered his weapon slightly. You're injured. Let us help you. Help. That made no sense. Humans didn't help their enemies. Everyone knew that. This had to be a trick. Some way to stop her from escaping through death so they could torture her later. But the human's face didn't look cruel. He looked tired and worried. More humans appeared behind him. 5 or 6 of them, all with weapons. But none of them were pointing their guns at her anymore. They just stood there watching her. My name is Doyen, the first human said. You're a prisoner of war now. We will treat you according to interstellar law. You will not be harmed. Please put down the suicide device. Hana's hand shook. Nothing about this matched what she had been taught. Where was the savagery? Where was the cruelty? These humans looked like soldiers, not monsters. Tired, dusty soldiers at the end of a long day. I know what you've been told about us, Doyen continued, taking a careful step closer. I know you're afraid, but it's not true. We don't torture prisoners. We don't execute captives. You will be treated with dignity. Lies. It had to be lies. But why? Why bother lying when they already had her? They could just take the device by force. I'm going to reach toward you now, Doyen said. I'm going to take the device. I won't hurt you. I promise. He moved slowly, his hand extended. Hana could have pressed the button. Should have pressed it. But something in his eyes, something genuine and honest, made her hesitate. Just for a second. That was all the time Doyen needed. His hand closed over hers gently but firmly and took the mercy button away. Hana felt tears running down her face. She had failed. Now she would face the torture she had heard so much about. Minji, Doyen called out. She's hurt badly. Bring the medical kit. A female human ran forward, already pulling supplies from a pack. She knelt beside Hana and began examining her injuries with quick professional movements. Her touch was careful, not rough. Possible internal bleeding, the woman named Minji said in human language. Her translator rendered it into words Hana could understand. We need to get her back to base immediately. Doyen nodded and spoke into a communication device. Hana lay there in the sand, confused and terrified as these humans worked to save her life. Nothing made sense anymore. These were supposed to be monsters. But they acted like people who cared. As darkness crept in at the edges of her vision, Hana's last conscious thought was that perhaps everything she had been told was wrong. Perhaps the real monsters were the ones who had taught her to fear mercy. Then the world went black and she knew nothing more. Hana woke up slowly, her mind struggling through thick fog. Everything hurt, but it was a dull, distant kind of pain, like her body was wrapped in cotton. She could hear steady beeping sounds nearby. The air smelled clean and sharp like medicine. Her eyes opened to white ceiling panels and bright lights. This was not a torture chamber. This was not a cell. It looked like a medical facility. Hana tried to sit up, but her body protested with sharp jabs of pain. She gasped and fell back against the pillows. Pillows, they had given her pillows. Easy, easy. The voice came from her left. Hana turned her head, fear spiking through the medication fog. A human woman sat in a chair beside the bed, wearing medical clothing marked with red symbols. She was young, with kind eyes and her dark hair pulled back in a simple tie. You had surgery, the woman said, her translator device rendering the words clearly. 3 broken ribs, internal bleeding, and a serious concussion. You're lucky to be alive. Lucky? Hana almost laughed at that word. She was a prisoner of the humans. How was that lucky? The human woman stood and checked several machines connected to Hana's body by thin tubes and wires. She made notes on a data pad, her movements calm and professional. My name is Minji. I'm the field medic who treated you after your crash. She looked at Hana with what seemed like genuine concern. How do you feel? Any sharp pains, nausea? Hana just stared at her. This was wrong. All of this was wrong. Where was the torture? Where were the cruel guards in the dark cells? Why was this human treating her like a patient instead of an enemy? You don't have to talk if you don't want to, Minji said gently. But I need to make sure you're healing properly. Can you move your fingers? Good, now your toes? Hana obeyed without thinking, her body responding to the medical commands automatically. Everything seemed to work, though it all hurt. Excellent, Minji smiled. The pain medication is working well. You'll feel much better in a few days. I'll bring you some food soon. We've prepared something that should be compatible with Velteran biology. Minji left the room and Hana was alone with her confused thoughts. The room was clean and quiet. Through a window she could see a hallway where human soldiers walked past, talking and laughing. They sounded so normal, so ordinary. The door opened again, but this time it was not Minji. A human man entered, older than the others, with gray hair and sharp eyes. He wore a uniform with symbols that suggested high rank. Behind him came Doyen, the soldier who had captured her. I am Commander Taewon, the older man said, standing at a respectful distance from her bed. You are currently at Human Forward Operating Base 7. You are classified as a prisoner of war and will be treated according to interstellar conventions. He paused. Do you understand? Hana nodded slowly, not trusting her voice. Good. I need to ask you some questions about your mission. You have the right to refuse to answer. You will not be punished for refusing. This had to be a trick, a test of some kind. Hana pressed her lips together and said nothing. Taewon asked her several questions. Where was her base? What was her mission? How many coalition forces were in the sector? Hana remained silent for all of them. She expected anger, expected threats or violence. But the commander just nodded after each question, making notes on his datapad. I understand, Taewon said finally. That is your right as a prisoner of war. You will be held here until arrangements can be made for proper internment in a POW facility. You will receive medical care, food, and basic necessities. If you have any concerns or complaints, speak to Minji or the guards. He turned to leave, then stopped. We are not what you have been told we are, he said quietly. I hope you will come to see that. Then he was gone, leaving Hana alone with Doyun. The soldier who had captured her pulled up the chair and sat down. He looked tired with dark circles under his eyes. He was younger than she had first thought, maybe early 30s. Battle-worn but not old. I brought you something, Doyun said, pulling a small device from his pocket. It's a reader loaded with books in Velteran. I thought you might get bored just lying here. There are novels, history books, poetry, whatever you want to read. He set the device on the small table beside her bed, within easy reach. Hana stared at it like it might explode. Why? The word came out as a whisper, rough and confused. Why what? Doyun asked. Why are you being kind? Why are you not? She couldn't finish. The word stuck in her throat. Not torturing you? Doyun finished for her. His expression turned sad. Is that what they told you we would do? Hana nodded. Doyun sighed and rubbed his face with both hands. Your coalition has been very effective with their propaganda. We're not monsters, Hana. We're just soldiers like you. We have families, homes, people we love. We fight because we have to, not because we enjoy it. They said you were savages. They said you killed prisoners for sport. And what have we done to you? Doyun asked quietly. Have we hurt you? Starved you? Mistreated you in any way? Hana had no answer for that. Everything she was experiencing contradicted everything she had been taught. I know this is confusing, Doyun continued. I know it's hard to accept that everything you believed might be wrong. But I want you to trust your own eyes and experiences. Watch us, listen to us. Judge us by our actions, not by what someone else told you. He stood to leave. Wait, Hana said. How long will I be here? In the medical bay? A few more days. Then you'll be transferred to a proper POW facility. It's much more comfortable than this. You'll have other prisoners to talk to, recreation time, access to communications with your family back home. Communications? Hana was shocked. You'll let us talk to our families? Of course. That's standard under interstellar law. Every prisoner has the right to let their family know they're alive and being treated well. Hana's mind reeled. Her family thought she was dead. Her parents, her brother Sunho, all of them grieving for her, and the humans would let her tell them she was alive. Over the next few days, Hana watched carefully. She watched how the human medical staff treated her, always professional and kind. She watched the guards who stood outside her room, who smiled and nodded when they brought her meals. She listened to the conversations in the hallway, humans talking about ordinary things like sports and food and their loved ones back home. None of it matched the propaganda. None of it matched the stories. One night she woke from a nightmare about the crash. She was crying, unable to stop, her whole body shaking with fear and confusion and pain. Minji came immediately, alerted by the monitoring equipment. She sat beside Hana's bed and held her hand, not saying anything, just being there. I don't understand. Hana whispered through her tears. I don't understand any of this. I know, Minji said softly. But you're safe here. No one will hurt you. I promise. And the terrible thing was, Hana was starting to believe her. These humans, who were supposed to be monsters, were treating her better than she had ever treated enemy prisoners in her own military training. The coalition had prepared her for torture and death. They had never prepared her for kindness. As she drifted back to sleep, still holding Minji's hand, Hana realized that her entire worldview was crumbling. If the humans were not monsters, then what did that make the coalition? What did that make her own people, who had taught her such terrible lies? The questions haunted her dreams, and she had no answers. 2 weeks after the crash, Hana was transferred to the prisoner of war facility. She had expected a dark, terrible place, but instead found herself in a complex that looked almost like a small village. There were buildings arranged in neat rows, open spaces with plants growing in them, and even recreation areas where prisoners could exercise and socialize. The transport vehicle stopped in front of a processing building. Doyen helped her out as she was still weak from her injuries. Her ribs had healed enough that she could walk without too much pain, but she tired easily. "This is where you'll stay, until the war ends or a prisoner exchange is arranged," Doyen explained as they walked. "You'll have your own room, shared bathroom facilities, a common area for meals and recreation. There's a library, exercise equipment, and outdoor space." It sounded more like a college dormitory than a prison. Inside, Hana was processed by an administrator who took her information, explained the facility rules, and gave her supplies including clothing, toiletries, and bedding. The rules were simple and reasonable. No violence, no escape attempts, respect for staff and other prisoners. In return, prisoners received 3 meals a day, medical care, recreation time, and communication privileges. Doyen walked her to her assigned room. It was small but clean, with a bed, desk, chair, and storage locker. A window looked out onto a courtyard where other prisoners were sitting and talking in the afternoon sun. "I'll be your liaison officer," Doyen said. "If you need anything or have problems, you can request to speak with me. I'll check on you regularly." "Why you?" Hana asked. "Why not someone else?" Doyen smiled slightly. "Because I'm the one who captured you. The military likes continuity in these situations. It helps prisoners feel more secure to have a familiar face." After he left, Hana explored her small room. It was better than her barracks back on the Coalition base. She had more space, more privacy. This was supposed to be a prison, but it felt more comfortable than her own military housing. A knock on her door made her jump. She opened it to find another prisoner standing there, a tall female from a species Hana recognized as Cathari. They were a bird-like people with feathered crests and sharp eyes. "Hello," the Cathari said in accented but clear Veltaran. "I'm Jiwan. I've been here for 2 months. Thought I'd welcome you and show you around." Hana was surprised. She had not expected kindness from another prisoner. In the military, there was competition and suspicion. But Jiwan smiled warmly and waited patiently. "Thank you," Hana said. "I'm Hana." Jiwan took her on a tour of the facility. She showed Hana the dining hall, where meals were served at set times. The food was basic but adequate, with options for different species' dietary needs. The recreation area had exercise equipment, games, and tables where prisoners gathered to socialize. "It's not home," Jiwan said, "but it's not terrible either. The humans are fair. They follow their own rules strictly." "Have they ever?" Hana hesitated. "Have they ever hurt anyone? Punished prisoners?" Jiwan looked at her with understanding. "You were told the stories too? About human cruelty?" When Hana nodded, Jiwan sighed. "So was I. My people said the same things. Humans are monsters. They torture and kill. But in 2 months here, I've seen nothing like that. A prisoner got sick last month, and the humans brought in specialists from off-world to treat her. Another prisoner tried to escape and was caught. He was put in isolation for a week but not harmed. When he came out, he said they had just kept him in a room alone. Boring, but not cruel." This matched everything Hana had experienced. It was also different from the propaganda. Over the following days, Hana settled into the routine of the facility. She ate meals with other prisoners, including Jiwon, who became a friend. She exercised to rebuild her strength. She read books from the library and wrote letters to her family, which the humans promised to deliver through neutral parties. Doyen visited her every few days. He would check if she needed anything, bring her requested books or supplies, and sometimes just talk. Hana found herself looking forward to these visits. Doyen was easy to talk to, thoughtful and genuinely interested in her culture and experiences. One day he brought her a package of Veltaran food items that had been delivered through a neutral supply ship. Dried fruits, spiced grains, sweet cakes that reminded her of home. Hana's eyes filled with tears when she saw them. "How did you know?" she asked. "You mentioned missing certain foods. I put in a request. It took a while to arrive, but here it is." Such a small thing, but it meant so much. He had remembered what she said. He had taken time to help her feel less homesick. Another prisoner at the facility was a young Cathari male named Hyunwoo. Wait, no, Hyunwoo was human. Hana sometimes confused names because she was learning so many. Hyunwoo was one of the guards, young and friendly with a bright smile. He had taken an interest in learning Veltaran language and culture. "Teach me a phrase?" Hyunwoo would ask during his rounds. Hana found herself teaching him greetings, polite expressions, even jokes. He practiced diligently and always thanked her. One evening, Hyunwoo showed her pictures of his family on his communication device. His parents, his younger sister who wanted to study astronomy, his childhood home in a place called Busan. He talked about them with obvious love and longing. "I miss them so much," he said. "This war has kept me away for almost 2 years. My sister was just 15 when I left. Now she's 17, almost an adult, and I've missed so much of her life." Hana understood that feeling perfectly. She missed her own family desperately, her parents who ran a small farm, her brother Sunho, who was also in the military, her friends from school. "Do you hate us?" Hana asked quietly. "The coalition, I mean. We're the ones keeping you from your family." Hyunwoo thought about that. "I don't hate anyone. I'm angry about the war, about the time I've lost. But I don't hate you personally, or the coalition people. You're just caught up in this like we are. I hate the war itself, not the people in it." It was such a mature, thoughtful answer. Hana was ashamed to realize she had thought of all humans as enemies, as monsters. But they were just people like her, with families and dreams and fears. Then Hana got sick. It started as a mild fever, but within hours she was burning up, her body shaking with chills. The facility doctor examined her and looked worried. "It's a Veltaran virus," he explained to Doyun, who had been called immediately. "We don't have immunity to it, so there's no risk to humans, but for her it could be serious." They moved Hana to the medical building and put her in isolation. Specialists were brought in, doctors who knew Veltaran biology. Hana drifted in and out of consciousness, her body fighting the illness. Sometimes she woke to find medical staff checking on her, adjusting medications, monitoring her vital signs. And sometimes she woke to find Doyun sitting beside her bed. He was not supposed to be there. He could not catch her illness. But regulations said non-medical personnel should stay away from isolation patients. Yet there he was, day after day, reading to her when she was awake enough to listen, just sitting quietly when she was not. "Why do you stay?" Hana whispered one evening, her voice weak from the fever. "Because no one should be sick and alone," Doyun answered simply. "And because I care about what happens to you." Those words settled into Hana's heart like stones dropping into still water, creating ripples that spread and spread. He cared. This human soldier, who should have been her enemy, cared about her well-being. It took a week for the virus to break. When Hana finally woke with a clear head and no fever, the first thing she saw was Doyun asleep in the chair beside her bed. He looked exhausted, his head tipped back at an uncomfortable angle. She reached out and gently touched his hand. He woke immediately, his eyes focusing on her with obvious relief. "You're better," he said, smiling. "Thanks to you. You didn't have to stay. I wanted to." In that moment, Hana realized her feelings had changed. This was not just gratitude or respect. This was something deeper, something that scared her because it should not exist between enemies. But they were not really enemies anymore, were they? The war still raged, but in this small room, there was only Doyun and Hana, two people who had come to care about each other. The realization terrified her. What did it mean? What could it possibly mean? There was no future where this feeling could exist. The war would end someday, and they would return to their separate worlds, separate lives. But for now, in this moment, Hana held onto his hand and let herself feel what she felt, war or no war. 3 months into her captivity, Hana's world shattered for the second time. The first time had been when she discovered humans were not monsters. This time was worse because she learned who the real monsters were. It started with a visit from a human intelligence officer named Yunji. She was older than Doyun, with gray streaks in her dark hair and eyes that had seen too much. She arrived at the POW facility with a secure data case and a grim expression. "I need to speak with you privately," Yunji said to Hana. "It's about the war, about how it started. They went to a private meeting room. Doyen was there too, standing against the wall with his arms crossed. He looked troubled, like he already knew what was coming and did not want to be part of it. Yoonji set up a display screen and pulled up files from her data case. What I'm about to show you is classified intelligence that we've intercepted over the past 6 months. I'm showing it to you because I believe you deserve to know the truth. What you do with this information is up to you. She pressed a button and the screen filled with images and text, communications logs, command orders, video footage, all of it from coalition sources, encrypted transmissions that human intelligence had managed to decode. The war started 3 years ago when a civilian station was destroyed. Yoonji began. The coalition blamed humans, said we launched an unprovoked attack that killed thousands of innocent people. But that's not what happened. She showed Hana the evidence. Orders from coalition high command to a covert operations team. Instructions to place explosives on the station. Communications discussing the need for a false flag event to justify military expansion into human space. And finally, video footage from the station itself, showing coalition soldiers planting the bombs that would kill their own people. Hana felt sick. This could not be real. This had to be fake human propaganda to turn prisoners against the coalition. I know what you're thinking, Yoonji said quietly. You're thinking this is fabricated. So I've also brought you testimony from a coalition officer who defected 2 months ago. Another video played, a Veltaran commander, someone Hana recognized from training bases back home, confessing everything. The false flag operation, the intentional killing of civilians, the lies told to justify the war. His face was filled with guilt and shame as he spoke. The coalition wanted war, the commander said in the video. The hardliners, the military expansionists, they wanted access to human territory and resources. They needed public support, so they created an enemy. They made humans into monsters in our minds, and then they gave us a reason to hate them by killing our own people. Hana stood up, her chair falling backward. No, this is not possible. I'm sorry, Yoonji said, and she sounded genuinely sorry. I know this is difficult to accept. You're lying. You're trying to turn me against my people. Doyen stepped forward. Hana, please. Look at the evidence. Really look at it. These are coalition codes, coalition communication channels. We couldn't fake that level of detail. But Hana was not ready to listen. She demanded to be taken back to her room. Doyen escorted her, trying to talk to her, but she refused to hear him. She locked herself in her small room and sat on the bed, her mind spinning. It could not be true. The coalition were the good ones. They were protecting the galaxy from human aggression. Everything she had done, every mission she had flown, had been in service of justice and peace. If this was true, then it had all been a lie. She had been fighting for nothing. Killing for nothing. For 2 days, Hana refused to see anyone. She did not eat, did not sleep properly. She just sat and thought, going over everything she knew about the war, about the coalition, about her own service. Small things started making sense. Questions she had pushed aside. Orders that had seemed strange at the time, but that she had followed anyway. The way coalition propaganda always seemed too perfect, too simplified. The fact that prisoners captured from human forces always told the same story about not wanting war, but those stories were dismissed as lies. On the 3rd day, Jiwon came to her room. The Kthari woman sat beside Hana on the bed and took her hand. I've seen the evidence too, Jiwon said softly. Yoonji showed me months ago. I didn't want to believe it either. Why didn't you tell me? Because it's not my place to destroy someone's worldview. That's a journey each person has to make themselves. But now you know, and I want you to know you're not alone in this. They sat together in silence for a long time. Then Hana asked the question that had been eating at her. If this is true, what does that make us? We fought for them. We killed for them. What does that make us? It makes us people who were lied to, Jiwon answered. We're not responsible for the evil our leaders did, but we are responsible for what we do now that we know the truth. That evening, Doyen came to her room. Hana let him in this time. He brought food which she picked at without much appetite. I need to see more, Hana said. I need to see everything you have. Over the next week, Yoonji showed Hana everything. Hundreds of intercepted communications, testimony from multiple defectors, financial records showing coalition military leaders profiting from the war, plans for future expansion once human territory was conquered, Video evidence of coalition forces committing war crimes and blaming them on humans. The worst part was discovering that some coalition leaders had always known the truth. They knew humans had not attacked the station. They knew their own forces had done it, and they let the war continue anyway, let millions die because it served their political and economic interests. Then Yunji showed Hana something that made her blood run cold. Recent intercepted communications from the coalition military, orders being prepared for a major operation. The target was a civilian transport carrying refugees from a border planet. The plan was to destroy it and blame humans to reinvigorate public support for the war which had been waning. When? Hana demanded. 3 days from now. Hana felt like she was going to be sick. More innocent people would die. More families destroyed. More lies to keep the war going. There's more, Yunji said, pulling up another file. Your brother, Sunho. He's been investigating the war's origins on his own. We've intercepted communications showing that coalition intelligence has him under surveillance. They know he's asking questions. They've classified him as a security threat. The screen showed messages discussing options for dealing with Sunho: reassignment to a dangerous posting, accidental death during combat, arrest on fabricated charges. Hana's hands shook as she read the cold clinical discussions of how to eliminate her brother for the crime of seeking truth. I need to warn him, she said desperately. I need to tell him what I know. You can, Doyen said. But there's something else you could do. You could help us stop the attack on the refugee transport. You could testify about what you've learned. The Galactic Council is holding peace talks in neutral space. If you spoke there, if you presented this evidence, it might change things. It might help end this war. The coalition will call me a traitor. Yes, Doyen agreed. They will. Your own people will hate you. It will cost you everything. Hana looked at the evidence spread across the display screens. All the lies, all the deaths, all the suffering caused by people who had manipulated her, and everyone else into fighting their war of greed. She thought about the refugee transport, full of families trying to escape the war, children who would die if she did nothing. She thought about her brother, who might be killed for asking questions. She thought about all the humans she had been taught to hate, who had shown her nothing but kindness and mercy. I'll do it, Hana said. I'll testify. Doyen's expression was a mixture of relief and sorrow. He knew what this would cost her. You're very brave. I'm terrified, Hana admitted. Everything I believed is gone. My career, my reputation, probably my family when they learn what I've done. I'm going to lose everything. Not everything, Doyen said quietly, taking her hand. You'll still have your conscience. You'll know you did the right thing. Will I still have you? The question came out before Hana could stop it. Doyen squeezed her hand. Yes, always, no matter what happens, you'll have me. It was a promise that should not be made across the divide of war. But they were beyond such things now. They had crossed too many boundaries, broken too many rules. There was no going back to seeing each other as enemies. That night, Hana could not sleep. She lay in her bed thinking about what she was about to do. Betray the coalition, her military, everything she had sworn to serve. But how could it be betrayal to expose the truth? How could it be wrong to try to stop more innocent deaths? The coalition had betrayed her first. They had lied to her, used her, made her fight for their greed and corruption. They had betrayed every soldier who believed they were fighting for something noble. They had betrayed their own people by killing them to start a war. Hana was not the traitor. They were. The decision settled in her heart with heavy finality. She would testify. She would tell the galaxy what she had learned. And whatever happened after that, at least she would face it knowing she had chosen truth over lies, mercy over vengeance, conscience over blind loyalty. She only hoped it would be enough. The journey to the neutral space station took 3 days. Hana traveled on a human diplomatic vessel with Doyun, Yunji, and a small security team. She spent most of the trip reviewing the evidence she would present, memorizing details, preparing herself for what was coming. Doyun stayed close, a steady presence when her courage wavered. More than once, Hana almost asked them to turn back. This was too big, too frightening. Who was she to stand in front of the Galactic Council and accuse the coalition of such terrible crimes? You're someone who knows the truth, Doyun reminded her. That's all you need to be. Tell them what you know. Show them the evidence. Let them decide. The neutral station was massive, a spinning wheel of metal and glass hanging in empty space between territories. It housed the Galactic Council chambers where representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered to resolve disputes and maintain peace. Peace talks had been happening here for months with no progress. The Coalition refused to admit any wrongdoing, and humans refused to accept blame for crimes they did not commit. Hana was brought to a secure room to wait for her testimony slot. Through the window she could see the council chambers, a huge circular room with seats rising in tiers around a central platform. Delegates from dozens of species filled those seats talking and arguing. The Coalition delegation arrived this morning, Yoonji informed her. They're demanding that you be handed over to them as an escaped prisoner. They're calling this kidnapping and coercion. What did the council say? Hana asked. The Arbiter ruled that you're here voluntarily and have the right to testify. But the Coalition is furious. They're threatening to walk out of the peace talks entirely. Good, Hana thought bitterly. Let them walk out. Let everyone see them run from the truth. A Galactic Council aide, a tall being with silver skin and multiple eyes, entered the room. It's time. Are you ready? No, Hana was not ready. She would never be ready for this. But she stood up anyway. Doyen walked with her to the entrance of the council chambers. He was not allowed inside during testimony, but he stopped her before the doors. Whatever happens in there, he said, you're doing the right thing. I'm proud of you. He kissed her forehead gently, a gesture of affection and support. Hana held on to him for a moment, drawing strength from his presence. Then she let go and walked through the doors alone. The council chamber was enormous. Hundreds of faces turned to watch as Hana walked to the central platform. Her legs felt weak, but she kept moving. The neutral arbiter, a distinguished being named Kyungmi with wise ancient eyes, sat at the highest point of the chamber. Please state your name and position for the record, Kyungmi said. I am Hana of Veltara, Scout Officer, Coalition Military, 7th Reconnaissance Division. Her voice echoed through the chamber, stronger than she felt. You understand you are here voluntarily to provide testimony? Yes. Then please proceed. Hana began to speak. She told them about her capture, about expecting death and torture from the humans. She told them about the kindness she received instead, about Doyen and Minji and all the others who had treated her with dignity and respect. She described the evidence she had been shown, the intercepted communications, the proof that the Coalition had started the war through a false flag operation. The chamber erupted in noise. Coalition delegates shouted that she was lying, that she had been brainwashed. Other delegates demanded to see the evidence. Kyungmi called for order, her voice cutting through the chaos. Yoonji was called forward to present the evidence. She displayed it on screens throughout the chamber so everyone could see. The communications logs, the command orders, the confession from the defected commander, the financial records, all of it laid bare for the galaxy to witness. A Coalition delegate, a Velteran official named Minseo, stood to challenge the evidence. This is clearly fabricated. Human intelligence agencies are well known for creating false evidence. This prisoner has been coerced through psychological manipulation. None of this testimony is reliable. I have not been coerced, Hana said firmly. I have been treated better by humans than by my own military. Everything I've said is true. You're a traitor to your people, Minseo spat. You've sold out the Coalition for comfort and lies. I'm not a traitor for telling the truth. The real traitors are the ones who killed our own civilians to start this war, the ones who keep sending soldiers to die for their greed. More arguments erupted. Coalition delegates shouted accusations. Other delegates demanded investigations. The whole chamber was in chaos. Kyungmi finally called for a recess to review the evidence properly. Hana was escorted back to the secure room, exhausted and shaking. Doyen was waiting for her. She collapsed into his arms, all the fear and tension releasing at once. He held her tightly, murmuring reassurances. You did it, he said. You told them everything. Now they can't ignore it. But the Coalition had no intention of accepting the truth. Over the next hours, their delegates held emergency meetings. They issued statements calling Hana a brainwashed victim of human manipulation. They threatened to escalate the war if the Galactic Council accepted her testimony as legitimate. Then, that evening, everything changed. Hana was in her quarters on the station when alarms started blaring. Security teams rushed through the corridors. Doyen burst into her room. We need to move now. The Coalition sent operatives. They're trying to kill you. He pulled her into the corridor where Yunji and other human security personnel had formed a protective ring. They moved quickly through the station toward the docking bay where the diplomatic vessel waited. Hana heard weapons fire behind them. The coalition operatives were close. Doyen and his team returned fire, creating a defensive barrier as they retreated. They reached a junction where they had to cross an open space to reach the docking bay entrance. "Go!" Doyen shouted, pushing Hana toward the doorway. "Get to the ship!" Hana ran. She heard more weapons fire, heard someone scream. Then a blast of energy flew past her, aimed at her back. She braced for the impact that would end her life. It never came. Doyen had thrown himself between her and the blast. He took the full force of it, his body armor absorbing some of the impact, but not all. "He went down hard, no!" Hana screamed. She turned back, but Yunji grabbed her. "Keep moving. We have to get him to medical." Two security officers grabbed Doyen and dragged him toward the ship while the others provided covering fire. Hana ran with them, her heart breaking as she saw the burn across Doyen's chest, the way his eyes were closed, the blood. They got everyone onto the ship. The moment the doors sealed, the pilot launched, fleeing the station at maximum speed. In the medical bay, human medics worked frantically on Doyen. Hana stood to the side, watching helplessly as they cut away his armor and began treating the wound. "Is he going to die?" she whispered. "Not if I can help it," the head medic said grimly. "But the next few hours are critical." Hana sat beside Doyen's medical bed, holding his hand. He was unconscious, his breathing assisted by machines. She had done this. Her choice to testify had put him in danger. He had nearly died protecting her. "I'm sorry," she whispered to him, knowing he could not hear. "I'm so sorry." Unji came to sit with her. The assassination attempt was broadcast across the station. Every delegate saw coalition operatives trying to kill a witness. It's caused a massive shift in the peace talks. Several coalition species are demanding answers. Some are threatening to withdraw from the coalition entirely. "I don't care about politics," Hana said, her voice breaking. "I just want him to live." "He will. Doyen is tough. He's survived worse." But Hana could see the worry in Yunji's eyes. This was bad, very bad. For hours she sat there while the medics worked. She prayed to every deity she had ever heard of, made bargains with the universe. Save him, she thought desperately. Take anything from me but save him. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the head medic came to her. "He's stable. The damage was severe, but we got to him in time. He'll need extensive recovery, but he should make it." Hana felt her knees give out. Yunji caught her, helping her stay upright. Relief flooded through her so powerfully it was almost painful. "Can I stay with him?" Hana asked. "Of course. He might even hear you, so talk to him if you want." Hana pulled a chair close to his bed and took his hand again. "I'm here," she told him softly. "I'm not going anywhere." "You saved my life, Doyen. Again. You keep saving my life." She laid her head on the edge of his bed, still holding his hand, and finally let herself cry. All the fear, all the stress, all the emotion of the past days poured out. She cried for Doyen, for herself, for all the lives destroyed by this war. She cried for the future she wanted but might never have. When she finally ran out of tears, she just stayed there, watching him breathe, grateful he was alive. Outside the ship, the galaxy was changing. The attempted assassination had exposed the coalition's desperation in ways no testimony could have. But none of that mattered right now. All that mattered was that Doyen was alive and she was there beside him where she belonged. Doyen woke 2 days later on a human medical ship orbiting a neutral planet. The first thing he saw was Hana asleep in a chair beside his bed, her hand still holding his. Even in sleep, she looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes and worry lines on her face. "Hey," he whispered, his voice rough from disuse. Hana's eyes snapped open immediately. When she saw he was awake, her face transformed with relief and joy. "You're awake. You're actually awake. Hard to kill," Doyen joked weakly, then winced as pain shot through his chest. "Don't move too much. The doctors say you'll need weeks to fully heal." Hana stood and adjusted his pillows carefully. "You scared me. I thought I'd lost you. Not a chance. Someone has to keep you out of trouble." She smiled through tears. "You took a blast meant for me. You could have died, but I didn't, and you're safe. That's what matters." A doctor came in to examine Doyen, checking his vitals and the healing progress of his wound. The energy blast had caused severe internal damage, but the human medics had worked a near miracle. With time and rest, he would make a full recovery. After the doctor left, Yunji arrived with news. "The galaxy is in chaos," she reported, sitting at the foot of Doyen's bed. The assassination attempt was the final straw for many Coalition species. 3 major worlds have formally withdrawn from the Coalition. 5 others are holding emergency votes. The Coalition is collapsing from within. "And the war?" Hana asked. "Several Coalition fleets have stopped fighting and returned to their home systems. Others are still loyal to the Central Command, but they're losing support rapidly. Your brother Sunho led a defection of an entire battalion. He's been broadcasting the truth about the false flag operation to anyone who will listen." Hana's hand flew to her mouth. "Sunho, is he safe?" "For now. He's in neutral territory with other defectors. He's been asking about you. Says he wants to talk to you when this is all over." Relief washed over Hana's face. Her brother was alive and had found his own path to the truth. They were on the same side now, even if they had arrived there through different routes. Over the following weeks, as Doyen recovered, the Coalition continued to fracture. The peace talks resumed, but this time with a very different tone. Coalition delegates who remained were no longer making demands, but trying to negotiate the best terms they could for a surrender they knew was inevitable. A Veltaran resistance movement had formed, led by a respected figure named Borum. She had always questioned the war, had always advocated for investigation into its origins. Now, with the truth exposed, she became the voice of those who wanted peace and accountability. Borum reached out to Hana, asking her to join the movement. "Your testimony changed everything," Borum said via secure communication. "You gave people permission to question what they'd been told. You showed courage when it was needed most. We need voices like yours to rebuild what the old Coalition destroyed." Hana agreed to help, though she was not sure what role she could play. She was just one person who had stumbled into an impossible situation and somehow survived. Meanwhile, human leadership proposed peace terms that surprised everyone. Instead of demanding harsh punishments or reparations, the human ambassador Changmin offered generous conditions: mutual disarmament, joint oversight committees, reparations for civilian casualties on both sides, and formation of a new council to prevent future conflicts. "We're not interested in revenge," Changmin explained to the assembled delegates. "We want peace, real lasting peace, that requires forgiveness and cooperation, not punishment." Many found it hard to believe. The Coalition had spent 3 years painting humans as vengeful monsters, and here they were offering mercy to their defeated enemy. It was perhaps the most powerful proof that the propaganda had been lies. True monsters do not offer forgiveness. True monsters do not help their enemies rebuild. 6 months after Hana's testimony, a final peace accord was signed. The war was over. Coalition species would govern themselves independently or form new alliances as they chose. Joint committees would investigate war crimes on both sides. Memorials would be built to honor those who died. Educational programs would teach the true history of the war, so future generations would not repeat the same mistakes. Hana was present at the signing ceremony, standing beside Doyen, who was fully recovered now. They watched as delegates from dozens of worlds signed the accord, officially ending 3 years of bloodshed. But the ceremony was interrupted by a commotion at the entrance. Security teams moved quickly, but not quickly enough. A group of Coalition extremists, those who refused to accept the truth or the peace, had infiltrated the station. They were armed with explosives, determined to restart the war by killing the delegates. Chaos erupted. Security teams engaged the extremists. Delegates ran for cover. Hana and Doyen found themselves in the middle of the fighting, trying to help people reach safety. One of the extremists spotted Hana. "Traitor!" he screamed in Veltaran, raising his weapon. "You destroyed the Coalition!" Doyen pushed Hana behind him, drawing his own weapon. But before shots could be fired, other Veltarans stepped between Hana and the extremist. Members of Borum's resistance movement, former Coalition soldiers who now fought for peace. "The only traitors here are those who lie and kill for power," one of them said firmly. Hana told the truth. "She's a hero, not a traitor." The extremist was overwhelmed and captured by security. So were his companions. The attack had failed, stopped by the very people the extremists claimed to be fighting for. In the aftermath, as medical teams treated the injured and security swept the station for more threats, something remarkable happened. Human and Coalition soldiers worked together to secure the area. Human medics treated Coalition wounded. Coalition engineers helped repair damage to human systems. It was a small thing perhaps, but to Hana it meant everything. This was what peace looked like. Not just an absence of fighting, but active cooperation between former enemies. Doyen found her standing by a window looking out at the stars. He wrapped his arms around her from behind and she leaned back against him. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "Now we rebuild. We create something better than what existed before. Together, if you want. I know this has all moved very fast. If you need time, if you want to go back to Veltara." Hana turned in his arms to face him. "I want to be with you. I've wanted that since the day you took that blast meant for me. Maybe even before that. Your people won't all accept this. A human and a Veltaran together. We'll face prejudice from both sides, I know. But we've already survived a war, an assassination attempt, and multiple near-death experiences. I think we can handle some disapproval." Doyen smiled and kissed her forehead. "Then together it is." They were assigned to work on the joint educational programs traveling between human and coalition worlds to teach the true history of the war. It was difficult work. Many people did not want to hear that they had been lied to. Some still believed the propaganda. Others were too hurt by losses in the war to be ready for reconciliation. But slowly, gradually, attitudes began to change. The old coalition leadership was investigated and prosecuted. New leaders emerged, people who valued truth over power. Borum became the Prime Minister of Veltara, working closely with human leadership to build new relationships. Sunho joined the Military Oversight Committee, ensuring that neither side could secretly militarize again. He and Hana reconciled, both of them having found the courage to question what they had been taught, and to choose truth over loyalty to corrupt leadership. Yunji and Changmin formed a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, documenting war crimes and working toward justice and healing. It was painful work, forcing both sides to confront the terrible things done in the name of war. But it was necessary. Through it all, Hana and Doyen remained together. They faced hostility from extremists on both sides who could not accept their relationship. Death threats arrived regularly. Security had to accompany them to public events. But they refused to hide or pretend their feelings did not exist. 1 year after the peace accord, they married in a ceremony that included both Veltaran and human traditions. It was a small, private event with only close friends and family. Sunho walked Hana down the aisle. Doyen's sister stood as his witness, and when they exchanged vows promising to stand together through whatever challenges came, there was not a dry eye in the room. They were the first official human Veltaran union, a symbol of what could be built from the ashes of war. Their wedding pictures were broadcast across both human and coalition worlds, inspiring some and angering others. But Hana and Doyen did not care about politics or symbols. They cared about each other, about the life they were building together, about the hope that their love represented. That night, lying in Doyen's arms, Hana reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From a crashed ship in the desert, certain she would face torture and death, to this moment of peace and love. Everything she had been taught was wrong. The monsters she feared had shown her mercy. The heroes she trusted had been villains, and the enemy soldier who had captured her had become the love of her life. "Thank you," she whispered to Doyen. "For what? For not killing me that day in the desert? For showing me mercy when I expected death?" Doyen held her closer. "Thank you for trusting me, for being brave enough to question everything you believed, for choosing truth even when it cost you everything." 5 years had passed since the war ended. Hana stood in the garden of her home on a colony world that housed both humans and Veltarans, watching her son play. Jinho was 3 years old, a beautiful child with features that blended both human and Veltaran traits. His eyes were Veltaran purple, but his smile was pure Doyen. "Mama, look," Jinho called out, holding up a flower he had picked. "Pretty, very pretty, love. But remember, we only pick flowers from our own garden, not from the neighbors." Jinho nodded seriously, then ran off to chase a butterfly. Hana smiled, though her heart ached a little. Raising a child who was half human, half Veltaran in a galaxy that was still healing from war was not easy. Already Jinho had experienced discrimination. Some human children were not allowed to play with him. Some Veltaran families whispered when they saw him. But there were good people too. Neighbors who brought food when Jinho was sick. Teachers who protected him from bullying. Other mixed-species families who understood the challenges. Doyen came out of the house carrying drinks for them both. He had left active military service and now worked as a diplomat, helping to maintain the fragile peace. The scars from the energy blast 5 years ago were still visible on his chest, a reminder of how close they had come to losing everything. "Borum called," he said, sitting beside Hana on the bench. "She wants us to speak at the memorial service next week, both of us." The memorial service would honor all who died in the war from both sides. It was held annually on the anniversary of the peace accord signing. Each year, more people attended. Each year, the wounds healed a little more. "What does she want us to say?" Hana asked. "Our story. How we met, how you made the choice to testify, how mercy changed everything." Hana sighed. She had told their story dozens of times over the past 5 years, but it never got easier. Reliving those memories, especially in front of large crowds, always left her emotionally exhausted. But she understood why it was important. Their story represented hope. It showed that enemies could become friends, that truth could overcome lies, that love could bridge divides that seemed impossible to cross. "We'll do it," she agreed. The memorial service was held on the neutral station where the peace accord had been signed. Thousands attended, both in person and via broadcast. Delegates from dozens of worlds, military veterans from both sides, families who had lost loved ones, and young people who wanted to ensure such a war never happened again. Hana and Do-yoon stood together on the stage, with Jinho between them holding their hands. When it was their turn to speak, Hana stepped forward to the podium. Her heart pounded as she looked out at the massive crowd. "5 years ago," she began, "I crashed in a desert, certain I was going to die. I had been taught that humans were monsters who tortured and killed their prisoners. So I tried to kill myself rather than face capture. The crowd was silent, listening, but the human soldier who found me did not torture me. He did not kill me. He showed me mercy. He saved my life and treated me with dignity and respect. That single act of compassion started a chain of events that changed the galaxy." She told them about her time as a prisoner, about learning the truth of the war, about making the choice to testify even though it meant losing everything familiar. "I lost my military career. I lost friends who saw me as a traitor. I lost the life I thought I would have. But I gained something far more valuable. I gained truth. I gained my conscience. And I gained this." She gestured to Do-yoon and Jinho. "I gained a family built on honesty and love instead of lies and hatred. I gained a son who represents the future we're all trying to build. A future where species differences don't matter, where old enemies can become new friends, where mercy is valued over vengeance." Do-yoon spoke next, talking about his own journey from soldier to peacemaker. "I was taught to fight. I was good at it. But I learned that true strength is not in destroying your enemy. True strength is in showing mercy when you have the power to be cruel, in choosing understanding over hatred, in building bridges instead of walls." He talked about the humans who had been killed in the war, the families destroyed, the suffering on both sides. "We honor them by refusing to repeat the mistakes that led to their deaths. We honor them by building a better world, even when it's hard, even when people resist change." Then they called up Sunho, Hana's brother, who now worked with Do-yoon on the Military Oversight Committee. He spoke about his own journey from loyal coalition soldier to someone who questioned his orders and discovered the truth. "My sister was braver than me," Sunho said. "She testified when I was still too afraid to speak up. She showed me that loyalty to truth is more important than loyalty to power. I'm proud of her, and grateful that she helped open my eyes." Yoonji spoke about the intelligence work that had exposed the false flag operation. Borum talked about the importance of holding leaders accountable and building systems that prevented such corruption. Changmin discussed the diplomatic efforts to maintain peace and strengthen cooperation between formerly hostile species. But the most powerful moment came when a young Veltaran woman named Yuna took the stage. She was a student born in the early years of the war who had lost her father to the fighting. "I grew up hating humans," Yuna said, her voice clear and strong. "I was taught they killed my father. I believed it for years. Then I learned the truth. Coalition leadership started the war. They lied to us. They were responsible for my father's death, not humans." She looked directly at Hana. "When Hana testified 5 years ago, I was 15 years old. I watched the broadcast and I was so angry. I thought she was a traitor, but then I saw the evidence. I saw the truth. And I realized that she was actually a hero. She risked everything to stop the lies. She chose what was right over what was easy. Yuna's voice strengthened. My generation, we're the ones who will inherit this peace. We're the ones who have to maintain it and protect it. And we will. We'll do it by following Hana's example, by questioning authority when something seems wrong, by choosing truth over comfortable lies, by showing mercy instead of seeking revenge. The crowd erupted in applause. Hana felt tears running down her face. To know that her choice had inspired young people like Yuna, that it had created ripples that would continue for generations, was overwhelming. After the ceremony, there was a reception where veterans from both sides mingled, sharing stories and memories. Former enemies shook hands and embraced. It was not perfect. There were still tensions, still old wounds that had not healed, but it was progress. A group of extremists attempted to disrupt the reception with a bombing. They were coalition hardliners who still refused to accept the peace or the truth about the war. But their plot was discovered before they could act, stopped by a joint security team of humans and former coalition soldiers working together. In the chaos of the attempted attack, Doyun was knocked down by the crowd. For a terrible moment, Hana feared he was hurt again, but he got up quickly, dusting himself off with a wry smile. I'm getting too old for this, he joked. Jinho had been frightened by the commotion. Hana picked him up, holding him close. It's okay, baby. You're safe. We're all safe. Both human and Veltaran first responders worked together to secure the area and treat those who had been hurt in the panic. It was yet another example of how far they had come. 5 years ago, humans and Veltarans had been trying to kill each other. Now they worked side by side to protect everyone, regardless of species. Later that evening, back in their hotel room, Hana and Doyun put Jinho to bed. The little boy was still unsettled from the day's excitement. Tell me a story, Jinho asked sleepily. Which one? Hana asked. The desert story. How you and Papa met. So Hana told him the story, simplified for a 3-year-old's understanding. How her ship crashed. How she was scared. How Papa had been kind to her when she expected cruelty. How that kindness had changed everything. You were brave, Mama, Jinho mumbled, his eyes drifting closed. Your mama's the bravest person I know, Doyun agreed, stroking his son's hair. When Jinho was asleep, Hana and Doyun stood by the window looking out at the stars. So many worlds out there, so many species learning to live together after years of conflict. Do you ever regret it? Doyun asked quietly. Testifying? Losing your old life? Hana thought about it. Sometimes I miss the simplicity of not knowing the truth, of believing the world was straightforward, with clear good guys and bad guys. But no, I don't regret it. How could I? Look at what we've built. She gestured around them, encompassing not just the room, but everything beyond it. Their life together, their son. The peace that had emerged from war, the hope that was slowly replacing hatred. You gave me mercy when I expected death, Hana said, turning to face him. That changed my life. But more than that, it changed the galaxy. It showed people that another way was possible, that we didn't have to be defined by our worst impulses, that we could choose compassion over cruelty. Doyun kissed her softly. We chose it together, all of it. The testimony, the peace, the life we're building for Jinho and children like him. Do you think it will last? The peace? I think it will last as long as people like us keep fighting for it.